The baby girl, tiny and soft, had 3 small breasts lined in a straight row across her chest. The room fell silent except for the baby's weak cry. The midwife whispered, "This is an omen child, a spirit child." And from that moment, fear sat beside the newborn like a shadow waiting to grow. Word spread through the village faster than the morning harmattan breeze, and even though Papa and Nana begged the midwife not to say a word, the tale escaped her mouth before the sun fully rose. People gathered in groups, whispering and shaking their heads like leaves in a storm. "That child is not ordinary," one old palm wine tapper said. "I heard it is the sign of a water spirit," another woman added, crossing her arms. The elders met secretly that night and warned Papa and Nana to keep the child hidden from visitors. They said a baby with such a mark could bring misfortune, drought, or even death if mishandled. Mama Nena wept every night, hugging her newborn and begging God to erase the extra breast, but no miracle came. The child grew, and the strange mark grew with her, causing whispers and fear to rise like smoke in a compound where fire never dies. When the baby was named Adaora, her parents hoped the name would bring honor someday, but instead it became a name people used with fear. As she grew older, she began to notice how people looked at her, how their eyes widened, how their mouths tightened, and how some even crossed themselves as if chasing away a spirit. Adaora learned to hold her wrapper tight across her chest whenever someone came. She learned not to stay outside long. She learned silence. Her mother tried to teach her that God loved her, but the village taught her something else entirely, that she was a mistake. The children in the community called her Mwainga Toru, the strange girl, even though many of them had never seen the third breast. The rumors alone were enough to brand her forever. When Adaora turned 16, her parents decided it was time to try for marriage, hoping a kind-hearted young man might overlook the deformity. But every attempt ended in shame. One suitor, a strong young farmer named Emeka, came with high hopes, smiling and eager. But when Adaora accidentally bent forward and her wrapper shifted slightly, revealing a glimpse of the extra breast, Emeka screamed and ran so fast he left his slippers behind. Another man, a quiet trader, stayed calm at first, but as soon as Adora's mother tried to explain her condition gently, the man jumped to his feet and said, "I cannot marry a child of taboo. I still want to live long." Papa and Nana stopped trying after that day. The doors to Adora's future closed like a locked shrine gate, allowing no hope to enter. She saw the sorrow in her parents' eyes, but she pretended not to notice. She simply stayed indoors, waiting for life to decide what to do with her. One hot afternoon, when the sky looked too bright for comfort, Adaora fainted at the edge of the market road. She had been on her way to buy pepper when dizziness washed over her like a heavy wave. That was the first time she met Dr. Chike, the new medical doctor posted to the village clinic. He was returning from visiting a patient when he saw a young woman sway like a dying plant and collapse into the dust. "Hey, are you okay? Can you hear me?" he said, kneeling beside her quickly. He lifted her gently, surprised by her trembling body. When he opened her wrapper slightly to check her breathing, his eyes widened, not in fear, but in confusion. When he saw the third breast, unlike others, he did not jump or shout. Instead, he muttered softly, "This is unusual, but there must be a reason." He carried her to the clinic, asking a passing cyclist to help call her parents.
When Adaora woke up, she found herself on a small hospital bed with the doctor standing close by. His eyes were gentle but curious, the eyes of someone who had seen strange things in life and wanted to understand them. "How long have you had this condition?" he asked calmly. Adaora pulled her wrapper tighter, embarrassed, scared, and silent. She expected the usual reaction, disgust, fear, superstition, but she saw none. Instead, she saw genuine concern. "I am not here to mock you," the doctor said softly. "I just want to know the truth." Something inside Adaora shifted that day. For the first time, a man had spoken to her without fear. For the first time, she felt seen as a human being. But the moment Dr. Chike touched her chest lightly to examine her heartbeat, something unexpected happened. A sudden flash of white light exploded behind his eyes. His vision blurred, and then for a brief second, he saw something. Something strange, something impossible. He saw an old shrine burning, its wooden pillars cracking under fire. He saw a woman crying beside the flames, and he saw a baby wrapped in white cloth lying at the foot of the shrine. The vision vanished as quickly as it came, leaving Chike stumbling backward in shock. Adaora frowned and asked, "Doctor, are you okay?" But Chike shook his head, forced a smile, and said, "I'm fine, just a little tired." He did not tell her what he saw. He could not explain it even to himself. Days passed and Chike found himself thinking about Adaura more than expected. Not in a romantic way, at least not yet, but in a way filled with curiosity and worry. Something about her condition did not feel natural. He had seen medical abnormalities before, but this felt different. It felt connected to something older, something deeper, something beyond science. Whenever he tried to sleep, he heard echoes of the crying woman in his dreams, calling out to him. He tried to dismiss it as stress, but every night the dreams returned stronger, clearer, more unsettling. Even the smell of smoke lingered in his mind like a memory that did not belong to him. One night, as Chike sat alone in his small clinic room reading a dusty medical file, he felt a sudden chill. It was strange because the night was warm. He frowned, stood up, and walked toward the door, thinking a window might be open. But before he reached the door, he heard it. A soft female voice calling his name. Chike! Chike! The voice was gentle but echoed strangely, like something calling from a distance and yet standing right beside him. Chike froze. Who is there? He called out nervously. The beam of the flashlight trembled in his hand, and then he saw a figure standing a few meters away, half hidden in the shadows. His breath caught in his throat when the figure stepped forward into the moonlight. It was Adaura, yet not fully awake. Her eyes were closed, her face calm, and her arms hung loosely by her side, as if she was sleepwalking. She stood barefoot on the cold earth, her wrapper fluttering slightly, even though there was no wind. Chike stared, stunned, his voice shaking as he whispered, Adaura, how did you get here? But Adaura did not answer. She only stood there, asleep, in the darkness, as if something had brought him to her. And as Chike took a step closer, something moved behind her. Something he could not see clearly. Something breathing. The darkness shifted.
Dr. Chike's feet refused to move at first, as if the earth itself had suddenly become heavy beneath him. He stared at Adaura standing in the moonlight with her eyes closed, her breath slow and steady like someone in deep sleep. Her wrapper clung to her body and her bare feet were dusty, showing she had walked some distance without knowing. Adaura, wake up! Chike whispered shakily, raising his trembling hand. But before he could touch her, she turned her head slowly, as if hearing a sound only spirits could hear. Her lips moved as though forming silent words, and her arm lifted slightly, pointing toward the dark bushes behind her. Chike moved his flashlight toward the bushes and his heart nearly stopped when he saw a shadow shift, wide, slow, and strangely deliberate. He blinked hard, but the shadow vanished instantly, leaving him terrified and confused. He grabbed Adaura gently by the shoulders and shook her. Adaura, wake up! Her eyes flew open suddenly, and she gasped. Doctor, how did I get here? She whispered, trembling. Chike swallowed hard. That is what I want to know. Adaura looked around, confused, hugging herself tightly as the cool night breeze brushed her skin. She saw how frightened the doctor looked, and fear rose in her chest. I didn't come here on my own, she said softly. I was sleeping in my mother's house. Chike nodded with a tight jaw. I believe you. You were sleepwalking, or something was leading you. Adaura's eyes widened. Leading me? To where? Chike took a slow breath but said nothing. He did not want to mention the shadow he saw earlier. He did not fully trust what he had seen with his eyes. Instead, he held Adaura's hand and walked her back to her parents' compound, refusing to leave her alone until he knew she was safe. When Mama Nena saw her daughter returning barefoot with the doctor behind her, she covered her mouth in shock. Adaura, where have you been? She cried. You are in your room. Adaura explained everything, her voice shaking as she spoke. Mama Nena collapsed to her knees. This child will kill me with fear, she wailed. Papa Nena quickly closed the door, muttering prayers under his breath. The next morning, Chike walked to the home of the village priestess, a woman everyone respected and feared. She lived in a small hut near the secret forest, and people said she saw things beyond ordinary eyes. When Chike arrived, she was sitting outside grinding leaves in a calabash. Without looking at him, she said, So, the spirits have started troubling your sleep too? Chike froze. How did you know? The priestess raised her head, her eyes sharp as though they could cut through flesh. When a vow is broken, it looks for the bloodline responsible, and your blood smells like guilt. Chike felt the hair on his arms rise. I don't understand, he managed to say. The priestess wiped her hands and stood up. Leave that girl alone. If you want to live long, keep your distance. She carries a mark that belongs to the spirit world. Chike stepped back, astonished. I'm a doctor. I cannot abandon someone who needs help. The priestess hissed. Then you will suffer, just like your father suffered. Chike's eyes widened. My father? What does my father have to do with Adaura? The priestess turned and entered her hut, leaving him trembling outside. After a long silence, she called out, If you dig up your father's past, you will find the answers you fear. Then the door shut firmly. Chike could not rest that day. His mind kept circling the priestess's words like vultures around a dying animal. He had always known that his father, Igwe Arinze, was a stern man who kept many secrets, but he never imagined those secrets could be tied to a girl born with 3 breasts. After work, Chike walked to Adaura's home and asked to speak with her parents privately. They sat on a wooden bench outside while Adaura waited inside, confused by the tension. Papa Nena sighed heavily and rubbed his forehead as if preparing for a confession. Doctor, he began slowly. What do you want to know? Chike folded his arms. Everything, especially what happened before Adaura was born. Mama Nena wiped her eyes and nodded. Doctor, I had 5 miscarriages before Adaura. 5 children died in my womb. I was desperate, so I went to a forbidden fertility shrine deep inside the forest. Chike leaned forward, his heart pounding. What happened there? Mama Nena's voice broke. The priestess of the shrine gave me a charm. She said my next child would live, but she also said the child will not belong completely to this world. Papa Nena swallowed loudly. We agreed because we wanted a child so badly, but we did not know the price.
Chika sat back, stunned. The vision he saw during Adara's examination of the burning shrine and the crying woman suddenly made sense. But there was more he needed to understand. Why did you never tell the elders? He asked. Papa Nana shook his head. Because we were afraid they would take Adara from us or kill her. At that moment, Adara stepped out from her room, tears flowing down her face. So I was never meant to be like other children, she cried. Mama Nena rushed to embrace her. My daughter, we love you no matter what. Adara sobbed into her mother's arms, and Chike felt a deep ache in his chest. He was beginning to care more than he intended. The next week was filled with strange events. A mysterious illness began spreading through the village. People developed fever, weakness, and strange rashes on their arms. No one could explain it. Some villagers blamed bad water. Others said it was a new disease. But one person, old Mama Ifilma, pointed at Adara when she walked past the market. Ever since this girl grew older, misfortune has not left this land. She is the cause. Soon the whispers grew louder. Maybe the spirits are angry because she is still alive, someone muttered. We should take her to the evil forest, another said. Papa Nana tried to defend his daughter, but the anger of frightened villagers is a fire that spreads easily. One evening, a small crowd gathered outside Adara's home, shouting, Bring the girl out! Let us take her away before the village dies. Adora hid behind her mother, shaking like a leaf in a storm. Chike arrived just in time and stood between the crowd and the family. If any of you touch her, you will answer to me. The crowd hissed and murmured, but his firmness made them disperse slowly. Later that night, Chike walked home with heavy steps. He felt responsible for Adora's safety now, but he also felt something else, an unusual connection, something deeper than medical concern. He walked past the old palm tree at the edge of the road when a sudden dizziness hit him. He grabbed the trunk of the tree to steady himself. His vision blurred again. This time, the images were more violent. He saw a younger version of his father inside a shrine, arguing with a strange priestess. He saw a charm being thrown into the fire, and he heard a child crying in the background. When the vision ended, sweat dripped from his forehead and he stumbled backward. "What is happening to me?" he whispered. Unable to stay calm, he returned to the priestess's hut the next morning. She was sitting outside plaiting carries into a rope. Without looking up, she said, "I warned you." Chicken kneeled down desperately. "Please, I need to know the truth. How is my father connected to Adaura's curse?" The priestess stopped plaiting and looked at him with cold eyes. "Many years ago, your father went to that shrine to destroy a covenant your mother made. He claimed the spirits were stealing from your family. When he broke the covenant, the shrine burned, the priestess died, and a curse was released. A curse that needed a child as repayment." Chike's mouth dried up. "A child?" The priestess nodded. "Adaora is the child, and because your father broke the covenant, the spirits are now coming for you." Chike felt the world tilt. "Me? Yes," the priestess hissed. "If the covenant is not restored, you will be the final offering." Chike stared backward, horrified. His father's sin had created Adaura's deformity, and now the spirits wanted him to. His breath came in short gasps. The priestess leaned close and whispered, "You cannot run. The truth will find you." And before he could respond, the wind behind him shifted violently, and a tall, shadowy figure arose from the bushes, stretching as if waking from a long sleep.
Adaura whispered, trembling, "Chike, something is coming for me." The words barely left her lips before the shadow on the forest path stretched wider, growing taller, bending like smoke rising from black fire. Chike pulled her behind him instinctively, his lantern shaking in his hand. The villagers had already begun retreating, running back into their huts, closing doors, locking windows, whispering prayers that carried fear instead of faith. Only the elders remained standing, their faces tight with the heavy knowing of old stories. Elder Ofodile raised his staff toward the shadow. "Reveal yourself," he commanded. "If you come with the authority of the spirits, step forward. If you come as an enemy, return to the darkness that birthed you." But the shadow did not obey. It moved closer, slow and certain, like something that had been waiting for this moment for many generations. Adaura clutched Chike's clothes and whispered, "I can feel it. It knows me." When the shadow finally reached the lantern light, the wind rose with sudden violence. Dust spun into the air. The flames in the elder's torches bent sideways as if bowing. From the shadow stepped a tall woman covered in white chalk designs, her eyes glowing like embers buried under ash. Gasps rippled across the village square. Elder Ofodile bowed his head. "The priestess of the burnt shrine," he whispered to the other elders. "She has crossed from the spirit world. The covenant is no longer silent." The spirit priestess lifted her staff and the earth trembled lightly under their feet. Her voice echoed as if 2 or 3 spirits spoke through her at once. "The one marked with the third breast stands before us. Her suffering cries have reached the spirits. Her pain caused louder than your denial. The debt from your ancestors demands payment tonight." Adaura's knees weakened. "What debt?" she cried. "Why me? I never offended anyone." The priestess turned her bunny eyes toward Chike. "You asked the wrong question, child. Ask him." Chike felt every heart beat in his body slow. "Me?" His voice cracked. "What did I do?" Elder Ofodile stepped forward with heavy, sorrowful eyes. "Not you," he said softly. "Your family." The word struck Chike like a stone in the chest. He staggered backward. "My family? My ancestors? What did they do?" Elder Ofodile drew a long breath. "Long ago, your great-grandfather went to the river goddess begging for a child after years of barrenness. He vowed a precious offering in return. But when the child came, he refused to give what he promised. The goddess marked his bloodline with a sign of remembrance, and she bears the final mark of that broken vow." Adaura's voice trembled. "So I am the price for something someone else did before I was even born?" Elder Ofodile nodded sadly. "The extra breast is not deformity. It is a covenant mark, a remembrance of a debt." The priestess lifted her staff and lightning cracked across the sky, though no clouds had gathered. "Tonight," she said, "the debt must be settled. The covenant must be repaired, or this village will know no dawn." Chike stepped forward despite his shaking limbs. "What must we do? How do we stop this?" The priestess stepped closer until he could smell the earth and smoke on her spirit cloth wrapper. As the descendant of the man who broke the vow, only you can mend what was shattered. Only you can carry her to the shrine where the covenant was burnt. Only you can give an offering strong enough to restore balance. Adaora gripped him tightly. Chike, don't listen to them, she pleaded. This is not your responsibility. I don't want you to risk yourself. You owe me nothing. Chike looked at her, heartbreaking at the fear in her eyes. Adaora, if my family caused your pain, then I must help heal it. His voice was gentle but firm. You deserve freedom, not shame. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the deep rising hum of spirits gathering around them. The priestess turned toward the forest path. Follow me, she said. Time is nearly gone. Her feet did not touch the earth as she glided ahead, the dust rising and settling under her without marking her steps. They began the journey along the narrow bush path, lit only by the trembling flame of Chike's lantern. The villagers watched them leave as though they were walking into the mouth of a giant beast. Adaora clung to Chike's arm, her breathing shallow and quick. I am scared, she whispered. I know, he whispered back, but you are not alone. Behind them, the elders chanted old safety prayers, but even their voices shook as if the words might fail. The deeper the path grew, the colder the air became. Strange shapes flickered between the trees, sometimes tall, sometimes crouched, sometimes like children running. Adaora kept her eyes forward, refusing to look at the shifting shadows, but every few steps she felt a cold finger brush her back. Chike squeezed her hand reassuringly. When they reached the burnt shrine clearing, the air tightened around them like a closed fist. Everything was silent, too silent. No insects, no wind, no rustling leaves, just the heavy breathing of the unseen. The shrine itself lay in ruins, stones blackened by old fire, ash scattered across the earth, and a carved wooden idol broken in half, his face twisted as if still screaming. The priestess faced them. This is where your ancestor made the vow. This is where he broke it, and this is where you must repay it. Chike stepped forward, but she raised her hand. Before you begin, know the truth. The spirits do not accept empty words. They demand something precious, something that holds your destiny, something that once given, you cannot take back.
Chike instinctively touched the metal tag hanging around his neck, his medical identity tag, the symbol of his profession, his career, his entire future. He swallowed hard. Is this enough? The priestess examined it with her burning eyes. It carries your ambition, your path, your hope. Yes, it is enough. Adaora gasped softly, tears rising. Chike, no! Please, your dream, your whole life. Chike shook his head gently. What is a life worth if I stay knowing you will suffer because of what my bloodline did? He looked at her with steady eyes. You are not a curse. You are not a burden. You deserve peace. The priestess lifted her staff and began chanting. The ground vibrated gently, then violently, until the trees bent backward as if pushed by invisible hands. A spiral of wind circled around Chike and Adaora, trapping them inside a ring of dust and whispering spirits. Bright blue flames erupted from the ashes of the shrine, forming a perfect circle. The priestess's voice grew louder. Place the symbol of your future into the fire. Repay what was stolen. Chike stepped toward the burning circle. The heat slapped him, hot enough to blister skin, but he did not stop. Adaora screamed, Chike, don't leave me. He turned slightly, his face softening. I'm not leaving you. I'm freeing you. He raised his identity tag, holding it above his head. For a moment, time stood still. No sound, no wind, no movement. Then he dropped it into the fire. The flames roared upward like a beast awakened. A shockwave burst outward, throwing Adaora to the ground. She clutched her chest as the third breast began to burn from the inside. She screamed, rolling in pain. Chike collapsed beside her, weak, his strength draining as though the fire pulled it from his bones. The priestess stood tall in the roaring heat. The offering is accepted, she declared. The sky brightened suddenly with a violent flash. Then everything went dark. When Adaora opened her eyes, the wind had died. The fire had vanished. Chike lay unconscious beside her, breathing weakly. She touched her chest and froze. The third breast was gone, completely gone. no scar, no swelling, no mark. She sobbed with relief, shaking as she stared at Chike. "Wake up, please, wake up!" He stirred slowly, his voice faint. "Adaora, are you free?" She nodded through tears. Yes, Chike, because of you." He smiled weakly. "Good. Then it was worth it." The journey back to the village was slow. Chike could barely walk. Adaora supported him, refusing to let anyone else touch him. When they entered the village, the people gasped. A woman cried out, "Her chest! Look, she's healed!" The villagers ran forward, touching her, hugging her, apologizing with tears. Chike was carried to a hut and treated with herbs for many weeks. He could not stand. He could not lift his arms. His strength had been poured into the fire and the spirits had taken their share. But Adaora stayed beside him every day, cooking, talking, praying for him to recover. One evening, after many weeks, Chike finally sat up without support. Adaora gasped, "Chike, you're getting better." He smiled softly, slowly, but yes. She knelt beside him. "Chike, there's something I need to say." He lifted her chin gently. "Say it." Her voice shook. "I love you. I have loved you from the day you defended me, but I was afraid you would leave." Chike shook his head gently. "I gave my future to save you. What more proof do you need? I will stay. I will marry you." The elders blessed their union under the old iroko tree. The villagers danced with joy. Adaora felt whole for the first time. Chike held her hand firmly, his heart full, and the spirits, satisfied at last, remained silent. Be careful of the promises you make in moments of desperation. Every vow carries a price, and the innocent often suffer for the secret adults try to bury. Did you enjoy Adaora and Chike's journey? Which part of the story shocked you the most? The third breast, the spirits, or the final covenant? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. If you want more thrilling folk tales full of suspense, mystery, and lessons, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story.